Can Zhen Huan, blessed with both beauty and talent, truly outshine all in the imperial harem and enjoy everlasting favor? Consort Hua was regaining influence, and both Mei Zhuang and Chao Qin were in their prime moments. Xianling hadn't visited my Yifu Hall for several days in a row. Although he had instructed me early on, I couldn't help but feel somewhat gloomy. The days grew longer. The afternoons were unbearably hot, with the sun fiercely shining, causing the golden bricks on the ground to reflect a blinding glare, without a single breeze. The entire Yifu Hall was locked up, with bamboo curtains hanging low, creating a cool and quiet ambience, wishing to keep all the summer heat outside. In front of the couch, a large cloisonné vase held several large ice sculptures, which slowly melted, and with a light touch a ding-ling sound echoed. I was drowsily leaning on the cool couch, half asleep. Underneath me was a bamboo mat made of fine green silk threads, which felt cool to the touch. I suddenly woke from a dream, feeling a vigorous heat coming through my pores. After tossing and turning, the plain gauze clothing on my body became soaked with sweat, and a few strands of wet hair stuck to the side of my face. Pei air and pin air, one on each side, were fanning me, with the wind wheel also blowing air vigorously. However, the air circulated by the wind wheel was warm at times and cool at others. I half closed my eyes, wanting to fall back asleep. The cicada's shrill cries came and went, making me feel drowsy yet unable to sleep peacefully. Annoyed, I slapped the mat and mumbled, "Go have someone catch those cicadas, and fetch some new ice from the Internal Affairs office." She agreed and quietly left. Sleeping with my back to the wall, after a while it seemed quieter outside, but the wind generated by the fans beside me became much stronger and cooler, enveloping me in comfort. In a daze, I murmured, "This wind is nice, fan harder." A soft voice responded, "All right." Hearing it was Xianling's voice, I suddenly became alert and sat up. My sleep had been restless, causing my hair to become slightly disheveled, and my clothing had come loose. The few sapphire dragonfly hairpins in my hair had also scattered on the bed, all of which suggested the languid mood of a spring nap. Unprepared for his presence, I was even more embarrassed, hurriedly pulling my clothes to cover my chest, while my mouth pouted, "Your Majesty is deliberately making fun of me." However, Xianling simply smiled gently, saying with affection, "I heard you haven't been sleeping well these past few days. Did you feel hot at night? I specifically came to fan you to help you sleep better." Such consideration moved me. Even with Consort Hua favored and Mei Zhuang pregnant, he still cherished me. Thinking this, I felt a bit more at ease. Just as I was about to get up to pay my respects, he pressed me down, saying, "It's just the two of us, no need for such formalities." I looked around and asked, "What about Pei air and pin air? Why would your Majesty fan me?" "I saw they were also feeling sleepy, so I sent them down," he said. He sat down beside me, casually picked up a Dotsai porcelain bowl with lotus design from the spring ivy table next to the bed, which contained lotus seeds and honey with watermelon ice, and smiled, "Seeing you sweat so much in your sleep, have some ice bowl to cool down. I've always been averse to heat and fond of coolness, and I don't particularly like sour food, so this sweet ice bowl is something I need prepared every day to enjoy." He stirred the bowl with a silver spoon, the crushed ice and fruits making a refreshing sound, adding to the cool honeyed fragrance, stimulating my appetite. He picked up a piece and brought it to my lips. "Let me feed you." I nodded slightly, embarrassed, and took a bite, feeling the sweet and refreshing taste in my mouth. I then offered Xianling some, but after tasting a bite he said, "It's a bit too sweet. Something sour and sweet would be better." I thought for a moment and smiled. "Huan has made some snacks, would Xilang like to try?" Saying so, I got up and brought over a silver jar with a parrot pattern. Xianling picked up a candied crabapple and asked, "What's this?" I replied, "It's something Huan made herself, not sure if it suits Xilang's taste." He tasted one and after a long while praised, "Sour and sweet, very delicious. How did you make it? I'll have others learn it too." I coquettishly said, Huan won't agree if others learn it. Xilang might not come to Huan's place anymore." Xianling laughed heartily and couldn't help but pinch my chin. Huan, I didn't know you were so petty." I pushed his hand away and sat down with the ice bowl, slowly saying, "It's not difficult actually. Take the crabapples harvested in autumn and marinate them in honey. The tricky part is the honey. You use the pear blossom honey collected by bees on the 3rd day of March and mix it with snow water collected from plum blossoms in winter. Then, infuse the honey with the pistils of the year's honeysuckles to clear heat. Simmer on low heat until the pistils in the honey dissolve. Then seal it in a small jar filled with rose petals and pine needles. You must have a clever mind to come up with such a recipe for a candied fruit. I pretended to sigh deeply and sat with my knees hugged. Huan is just passing time, playing around with nothing much to do. Xianling suddenly hugged me and laughed. Is this your way of complaining that I haven't visited you these past few days? I pouted. Does Xilang think Huan is always so petty and unreasonable? That's underestimating Huan too much. Suddenly, the tightly closed door creaked lightly, and a flash of lake green light chiffon skirt appeared. It was Huan Bai, looking embarrassed, peeping from outside the door, holding a glazed tray with a few freshly cut flowers, probably just coming from the flower room. Since incense shouldn't be burned in summer, fresh fragrant flowers need to be replaced in the morning, afternoon, and evening, so she came at this time. Everyone was sent to sleep by Xianling, and Huan Bai probably didn't expect Xianling to be here, standing there hesitantly, not knowing whether to enter or retreat. Seeing her and realizing I was still in Xianling's arms, I couldn't help feeling embarrassed too. Huan Bai, seeing us looking at her, knelt down with a thump, repeatedly begging, "Your Majesty, please forgive me, it was an unintentional mistake." Then with tears in her eyes she looked at me and said, "Miss, Huan Bai didn't mean it." Xianling showed a hint of displeasure. How can she be so tactless? But upon hearing her soft voice he glanced at her. "You are called Huan Bai?" Huan Bai hurriedly nodded, lowering her head deeply, and said softly, "Yes. I am a maid brought into the palace by the mistress as part of her dowry." Xianling then felt relieved and turned to me. "She came with you as part of your dowry?" Seeing her sincere and fearful demeanor, I couldn't help but laugh. "Put down the things and go." Huan Bai complied with a yes, placed the flowers in a vase, and quietly left, closing the door behind her. Xianling watched me laugh, whispering in my ear, Huan's laugh is truly captivating." Then, looking at Huan Bai's retreating figure, he said, "Is it because this girl has been with you for so long that she resembles you somewhat in her expressions and demeanor, making her more charming than others?" A sudden doubt arose in my heart, recalling Huan Bai's background and situation, which stirred a cloud of suspicion. Indeed, her mannerisms did somewhat resemble mine. However, upon further thought, although she was nominally my servant over the years, I had treated her better than even Lu Zhu, almost as well as myself. My father had also taken care of her in secret when we were at home, and having been with me for so many years, I felt somewhat reassured. Glancing sideways at Xianling, he gently took my hand and kissed it lightly. My face felt hot, and I chuckled softly, playfully hitting his shoulder. Something came to my mind and I asked, "Where did you come from in this scorching noon, Xilang?" He looked away. "I just had lunch at Consort Hua's place." I responded with an "oh" and quietly picked a piece of watermelon to chew, no longer speaking. Xianling wrapped an arm around my shoulder and said, "Don't be upset. I also promoted your rank so quickly after that to prevent her from troubling you, making them realize your importance in my heart, so they wouldn't dare to underestimate you." I said softly, Huan wouldn't dare to think so. But I can't help feeling a bit apprehensive after the incidents with Consort Yu and Noble Consort Li." He sighed. "How could I not understand? My intention was to promote you to the position of noble consort, taking the principal position in the inner court. But since you had just entered the service and were promoted to consort without having served in the chamber, it already violated the ancestral regulations. I had to wrong you for a while, until the day you are with child, then everything will be justified." I leaned against his chest, whispering, Huan doesn't care about the rank, as long as Xilang has Huan in his heart." He looked into my eyes and said, "How could I not have you in my heart? Huan, I actually can't bear to part with you." He spoke softly. "With so many people in the 6 palaces constantly troubling me, only with you can I feel at ease and comfortable." Feeling somewhat comforted by the steady beat of his heart, I wrapped my arms around his neck, whispering softly, Huan knows." After a moment of silence, I asked, "When you visited Sister May, was her appetite any better?" "It's still the same, she constantly craves sour foods." I'm worried it might harm her stomach, so I've instructed the kitchen to limit her sour intake. I also intended to visit Sister May, but she, being pregnant, prefers to be lazy and avoid seeing people. I thought it's better for her to have your Majesty's company, especially since pregnancy can indeed be tough. Xianling kissed my cheek softly and chuckled. You're always worrying about others. When will you give me a chubby little prince? I nudged him, pouting. Wouldn't a princess be just as good? As long as it's our child, I'll love them all the same. Why are you pushing me? I struggled slightly, and the light fabric of my shoulder garment had already loosely slipped down, revealing half of my snow-white shoulder, adorned with a golden-laid green jade armlet, making my skin appear even more delicate and lustrous. His lips were burning hot, pressing fervently against my skin. Feeling both embarrassed and anxious, I whispered, "There are people outside." Xianling hummed, his lips tracing my cool collarbone. "I've sent them all to take a nap, there's no one around." Before his words had even finished, most of the buttons on my garment had been undone, my heartbeat racing even more. I said, "But it's still daylight." He laughed softly but remained silent. I had no choice but to say, "It's so hot we might overheat." He lifted his head, busily scooping a piece of watermelon into his mouth and then feeding it to me. I mumbled incomprehensibly, my body tilting and falling onto the couch. A sapphire dragonfly hairpin was pressing under my arm, causing a bit of an uncomfortable pain. I moved it aside, my fingers instinctively clutching the mat, unable to articulate my words fully. In a dizzying haze, I slightly lifted my gaze. The sunlight filtered through the bamboo curtains, casting alternating deep and shallow shadows on the floor tiles. Apart from the low moans and breaths, the room was cool and quietly serene.
Follow us to avoid getting lost and enjoy endless exciting stories. For more content, please go to the Story Wall homepage to view more exciting novels.